Good morning, welcome to Rising. We have another great show for you today, this Wednesday morning. Good morning, Lindsay. Nice to see you. You're looking lovely. I like the dress.
Do we match?
I
come on, in
think
there.
so.
What do you mean? I have like a bluish? You have a reddish?
I guess. All right, that's not what I want to talk about.
Okay, tell me.
What I need to say before we get going is the conditions in the District of Columbia relating to the weather storm are insanely bad. Initially, I gave the city credit for plowing pretty well. They plowed the main road, so it was easy enough. It's been easy enough for me to get to work. I don't live very far, and I mostly take the highway.
Yeah, you told me it took you
It took me like 3 minutes. It's fine. They did a good job initially, but I naively assumed they were then going to later come back and finish the job and do all the other streets, and they haven't. And people, it's been 4 days. People are just stuck. Like, if your street didn't get plowed initially, it's still not plowed. It's turned to ice, and I don't even know if plows
like
can do any good.
Blocks.
It is. Ladies and gentlemen, you have no idea how bad it is. Like, there are buses that tried to make turns all over the city that are just stuck. Like they're like a ship exploring the Arctic looking for the Northwest Passage stuck in a glacier. It's genuinely insane. It is the most gross and incompetent mismanagement of a weather-related event I've ever seen in my life. And the idea that we should have statehood or we could run or govern ourselves is made very ridiculous by what has happened.
Also, a lot of D.C. schools are closed, too, so there's a lot going on.
Or there hasn't been snow in 4 days, and the schools are still closed.
Yes, that's true.
It's insane.
Coming up
Had to say it.
He had to say it. Coming up on Rising, Ilhan Omar was apparently attacked at a town hall and sprayed with an unknown liquid, but she says that she's okay.
Also, President Trump is defending Noem and said she would not be stepping down amidst the deadly shooting of Alex Pretti.
And Bari Weiss held a town hall with CBS staffers and said that the company was, quote, toast if they continue with the current strategy. But first, Robby, what's on your radar?
Well, let's talk about hypocrisy. Now, in response to the killing of Alex Pretti in Minneapolis, Minnesota over the weekend, there's been a lot of attention to so-called Republican hypocrisy on the Second Amendment, on gun rights. Pretti was carrying a gun, and he was licensed to do so. It's not clear if he was still armed when he was shot. Video evidence strongly suggests the Customs and Border Protection agents disarmed him and then shot him dead. Now, in response, several top Republicans have made the wrongful claim Pretti was carrying a gun in some manner that violated the law, either that he brandished it at officers or that he didn't have the right to bring a gun to a protest or to confront law enforcement while carrying a gun, and all of those ideas are wrong. As I've said, the individuals who pushed them, Kash Patel, Scott Bessent, Noem, are mistaken. There's also this idea I've now seen that he was breaking the law because he wasn't carrying ID, which is required for gun owners. Here was Fox News commentator Joey Jones on that.
Because I've been in that situation. There's a couple of things. Number one, the Second Amendment is a right. I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. You have the right to carry a weapon to defend yourself, not the privilege. It is a right. Those rights come with restrictions. I think you would understand that more than anyone at this table. One of those restrictions is you have to have your ID and your permit on you. We don't know. Current reports are he didn't have either one of those on, at which point he's not carrying legally. But number two, even beyond that, with the right to carry a firearm comes the responsibility to do it correctly and to do it with foresight and to do it understanding the situation you're walking into.
I like Joey Jones, but the problem with that is the cops didn't actually ask Pretti to show him ID, to show them his ID, and if they had and he hadn't had it on him, it could have been a $25 fine. So what? The lack of ID doesn't have any impact on whether law enforcement was correct to view him as a threat or not. So let's stop obsessing over that point. It's a non sequitur. Instead, let's robustly defend our principles, and chief among them is the right to bear arms. You can bear arms at protests, you can bear arms while interacting with law enforcement, and if you happen to bear arms while committing a crime like resisting arrest or impeding law enforcement, you can't be killed just because you had a gun on you. You can be killed if you threaten the lives of law enforcement or other people. Let's not pretend that it's the Republicans, however, who are solely being hypocritical about this. It's just not the case. I've actually mostly seen criticisms of Kash Patel and Noem from Republicans. So my question then is, where do Democrats actually stand on this? Because, as I mentioned earlier this week, the ACLU, for instance, backpedaled on whether they support concealed carry rights of protesters. I think many progressives do not believe that protesters should be armed at all. They certainly seem to support every restriction on gun ownership and concealed carry that Democratic legislators can think of. Here was Batya Ungar-Sargon pointing that out.
Obviously, this is like a ridiculous thing to say. I will say I am overjoyed to see liberals and Democrats standing up for the Second Amendment. I think this is the moment of common ground that we've all been waiting
Let's not get too
for.
crazy now.
Well, I mean, look, as we were discussing in the break.
The Second Amendment.
In that clip, right on cue, the person sitting next to Batya moves to clarify that lack of support for the Second Amendment among Democrats is going to continue. See, it's just a gotcha. They don't support it. Sadly, too many politicians in both parties have been willing to compromise on fundamental Second Amendment rights. I'm perfectly willing to admit that many Republicans have been bad on this issue, but most Democrats, virtually all Democrats, are significantly worse and do favor all sorts of restrictions on gun ownership, on carrying guns, which guns you can buy, on how long it takes to get a gun, and so on. Every time anything goes wrong concerning a gun, we are told by Democrats that we need common sense gun control, whatever that is. Are they now saying in the wake of Pretti's death that they no longer support that? Please help me make it make sense.
Robby, this call out is a sleight of hand. I don't like it.
Oh, really?
From you. I think it's a really low hanging fruit for you.
Okay.
You try to shift the burden from the fact that Republicans and the federal administration were trying to criminalize a victim and use things that go against policies that they put forward and argue for often in a case where it works against the federal agents that they sent into the city. And I think when you talk about losing a life and the fact that the ACLU and other Democrats are arguing, they're saying that they don't want state overreach, they don't want unjustified killings. And so they're leaning on the fact that if your argument is that he had a gun on him and that automatically was a threat, that makes no sense not only to the stance that Republicans usually run on, but also to the fact that his civil liberties were violated.
No, I agree, but that's what I'm saying.
And so Democrats are allowed to call that out without being Second Amendment purity tests and passing them.
No,
They're
don't
allowed to call out
Democrats,
the
do
overreach
Democrats
and say,
believe that guns should be at protests?
You're asking somebody, I told you that I don't fall in line with any party on this specifically. I feel like people should own guns. My partner is from Texas. Like, sometimes it's passed down your lineage. I don't think there's a problem with it. I believe in the Second Amendment. But I also think that there are people that in Republican states like Florida that support things like red flag laws and other things that need to be implemented so we can avoid things like mass shootings. So we can
I don't even support red flag laws.
Well, I do. And so I'm saying that there are smart measures that can be put in place to protect people in instances where they need protection, like when somebody grabs a gun and kills people.
To a protest? I'm just asking. Again, the
ACLU
moved toward that position as a result of January 6th.
The people saying don't bring a gun to a protest is the president yesterday. That's what he said when he was asked outside.
Well, and I disagree with him.
Exactly.
He's wrong about that.
It's not to say, oh, let me figure out how to sleight a hand and point the blame on Democrats.
What I'm pointing out is that he's adapting the Democratic position on this issue.
But where Democrats stand on guns is that we need smart, common sense gun reform.
What does that mean?
That means things like red flag laws that work in places like Florida. That means implementing things. That means background checks that are more clear and concise to make sure the people that have mental health history are not accessing guns. I mean, these are smart reforms that everybody can get on board with. It means that conversations, like when we look at situations like Minnesota and how Walz finally called the president, and now we're having some forward movement with Tom Homan, that could have happened months ago. It means that these conversations about guns don't need to happen on the back of deaths and shootings. I don't think any of those things are going to
lower gun deaths.
No, I'm saying the fact that there's a conversation led to progress, and we always have
lower
these
gun deaths
conversations
is arresting
someone
people
dies.
who possess illegal firearms, illegal because they've already have a criminal conviction, and thus they're not allowed to carry handguns anymore. Arresting those people, that would reduce crime dramatically, but we're not willing to do that, I guess, because we don't arrest criminals anymore.
Well, I think the solution is that it's so bad that the administration dropped the ball so far on this that they want to look at Democrats and now say, but what are you doing here? Not going to work.
I'm not saying what are you doing here.
Not going to work.
Support the Second
Not going to work.
Anyway.
It's saying
so why do you care
that
he was allowed to carry a gun by our rules?
Because gun control laws are valid unless you're protesting something the administration doesn't like, then you deserve to die. That's basically the message that's being sent. And we need to focus on the fact that people actually died in Minnesota and not say, well, what did Democrats say 3 years ago? Like, no, that's not at hand. The problem at hand is that 2 people died in the last month in Minnesota, and they're blaming the fact that he had a gun in a holster as a problem because it's a state where you can have that concealed carry.
I agree.
So I'm just like not
that's
understanding why this is even being brought up right now when someone died and the investigation is not even transparent.
But my problem with what Republicans are saying is that it's a standard Democratic talking point and point of view that your gun rights should be more limited than what the Second Amendment allows.
Right, but they don't have to pass a purity test to answer and respond to the fact that there was an unjustified killing in Minnesota about gun laws. I don't think that you have to have both. You can feel that strongly about it and also say that he didn't deserve to die. And according to our laws right now, he was allowed to carry that gun. They're pointing out a fact. That doesn't mean they need to support every single thing that comes with the gun changes that Republicans would like to see.
All right, well, we disagree on this, but we agree on what a horrible state our nation's capital is in with its plowing.
Democrats are calling for DHS Secretary Kristi Noem to either be fired or impeached. We'll be right back after this.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries warning President Trump if he doesn't fire Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, Democrats will impeach her.
It comes on the heels of the killing of Alex Pretti in Minnesota, the second U.S. citizen to be killed there this month by a federal immigration officer. Now, more than 2/3 of Democrats are co-sponsoring articles of impeachment for Noem. In a joint statement with other leaders in his party, Jeffries wrote, quote, "Taxpayer dollars are being weaponized by the Trump administration to kill American citizens. The violence unleashed on the American people by the Department of Homeland Security must end forthwith. Kristi Noem should be fired immediately, or we will commence impeachment proceedings in the House of Representatives. We can do this the easy way or the hard way." Even some Republicans in Congress seem to be fed up with Noem. Senators Tom Tillis and Lisa Murkowski opting to bypass the president entirely and called on Noem to resign.
As for Trump, he doesn't seem to be concerned with threats of impeachment. The president insisted yesterday he would not fire Noem and seemed pleased with the job that her department was doing in Minnesota. Take a listen.
Good job. I think she's doing a very good job. The border is totally secure. Memphis, Tennessee, the crime is down 78%. And you know where else it's down? It's down in Minnesota. It's down in Minneapolis. And it's down very much because of the fact that we're there.
The White House followed it up, telling Axios if Democrats cared this much about deporting violent criminals, illegal aliens, and such, the American people would be much safer. Even if the House impeaches Noem with the help of some moderate Republicans, it's unlikely the Republican-held Senate would remove Noem from office.
Meantime, Congress continues to be deadlocked over funding Noem's department, specifically Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which would receive an extra $10 billion under the Republicans' bill. That's in addition to the $76 billion it received from Trump's Big Beautiful Bill last year. With a partial government shutdown looming on Friday, Democrats are urging Republicans to remove DHS bill from the main package and vote on it separately. However, Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Senator Katie Britt, who chairs the Homeland Security Appropriations Subpanel, have both indicated that they want to pass the package together.
Well, look, Kristi Noem is not going to be removed and impeached. She might be impeached.
Sounds so
She's not going
confident.
to be removed. This is Trump's personnel. This is his cabinet. He gets to pick his cabinet. And the fact that Lisa Murkowski and Tom Tillis, Lisa Murkowski is like the most moderate Republican there is. She's in a state of Alaska, which is a state that can go either way. Tom Tillis is not running for re-election. These are not people who have credibility in the MAGA sphere, so it's not amazing that they're saying anything. Frankly, it's more incredible that John Fetterman also called for Kristi Noem. John Fetterman is to their right, has more credibility in MAGA than they do. So, there is a lot of movement against Kristi Noem. There's a lot of frustration with her. The bringing in Tom Homan is the antidote to that on the Republican side, certainly not removing her from office. If Trump decides he wants to fire her, that's his right, but he's not. That would be the first cabinet member to leave. It might be her. Who knows? He could change his mind, but she's not getting removed by Democrats. That's going to make him want to keep her.
He's not willing to take that L. I think there's some inside rumblings that we can look at as maybe an indication that things are not all smooth waters. I mean, aside from the very obvious fact that they are overstating things that they're not sure about. Miller's power, Stephen Miller, extends beyond Noem in this situation, but technically Noem is supposed to be higher ranking than him. Well, but she told Axios yesterday. Yeah, but she told Axios yesterday, quote, "Everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen." And so she's automatically starting to have this conversation about pushing blame. I'm not just going out there saying things. I'm basically being told to do this. And to me, that's a big label that she's trying to say is not for her to take the onus of. She's like, this administration has guided me to say these things. They're obviously having conversations. So when you see Caroline Leavitt say, well, we don't really align with, the president doesn't really align with the things that were said in regards to Alex Pretti. It's like, well, what's the miscommunication? Like, who's to blame? So right now we're seeing some internal blame game going on, and also having multiple people. Maybe Republicans aren't willing to say that we want to have Kristi Noem impeached because they don't want to side with Democrats and become this partisan battle where they're not siding with Trump. But I do think that people are critical of Kristi Noem. This is a failure of leadership to go out there twice in a row and call people domestic terrorism, people who came to massacre, and you have no information. And it's causing huge ruckus with the public. I mean, when we see polls about immigration after these incidences, you're seeing the support is waning from the president. And this is his big flagship mission, handling immigration. And if she's doing it on her own and she's saying she's not, it's completely deteriorating the trust of the American people when you have Americans killed during his operation.
Yeah, I mean, the people voted for mass deportations, and this is what mass deportation looks like. So now they're saying, not like that, no. Well, I don't know. What did you think was going to happen?
This is what it looks like, Americans dying? That's what I think the problem is. This is not what it should look like or anyone
Well,
wanted
then we want to live in magic fantasy land where no one gets hurt at all?
No, we don't want to live in military land where military is marching all over our
Okay,
streets.
then there's not going to be mass
pulling
deportation.
people out of
like this,
schools.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the American people. Like, consider the ramifications of what you're voting for. Do you want all the illegal immigrants in the country gone? Because then there will be military everywhere, and Americans' rights will be violated, and people will get hurt, and some people will die. And that is what is going to be necessary to deport 12 million people. If you don't want if you think the consequences and the harms to liberty are too great, then you should retract to some degree your support for mass deportations. That's what I'm saying. I'm not at all addressing
clarifying,
you.
exactly.
Like, there are trade-offs. We cannot wave a magic wand. This is the same thing I say to Democrats with guns. They're like, we want fewer gun deaths. Okay, well, that means mass confiscation of guns from economically disadvantaged and minority communities where most of the violences and most of the illegal guns are possessed. Do you want people law enforcement going door to door and violating people's civil rights to take their guns? If you don't, then stop talking to me about this issue, because that's what it would take. We can't wave a magic wand and have the policy implemented in the perfectest way and no one gets hurt or harmed. That's fantasy. And so if we're backpedaling now and saying, you know what, this is too ugly and too messy, and I don't think we should do this anymore, that's fine. But just, and I agree. I also would not do this given these stakes. But we can't implement the immigration agenda perfectly without any harms to anyone, is what I'm saying.
And I think you know that I'm not a fan of political vendettas, but cabinet secretaries can be impeached for abuse of power, violating public trust, lying to Congress or the public. These are all fair reasons for impeachment. And so Kristi Noem being impeached for doing 2 of the 3, and I can keep going on for other reasons, is a fair reason to say, if you guys don't get her out of here, she's not a good leader, then we'll impeach her. Now, whether it goes all the way through, we remain to be seen. It depends on if Republicans think that her leadership is adequate. They seem like they're going to side with Trump here, but them impeaching her, to me, is not partisan.
I guess we should momentarily comment on the funding battle. It will be interesting to see who blinks first. We could very much be headed for another government shutdown
by Friday.
Soon. I'm not quite sure who's going to, because Democrats, their base does not want to let them vote for more ICE funding right now. Up next, Representative Ilhan Omar was attacked during a Minneapolis town hall about the immigration crackdown. We'll discuss that. Don't go anywhere. During a town hall in Minneapolis on Tuesday, a man appeared to spray an unknown substance at Representative Ilhan Omar.
The man was sitting directly in front of Omar while she was giving remarks on the abolishment of ICE and calling for DHS Secretary Kristi Noem to resign. Let's take a look.
ICE cannot be reformed. It cannot be rehabilitated. We must abolish ICE for good. And DHS Secretary Kristi Noem must resign or face impeachment. I don't know.
Oh my God! Oh my God! He sprayed something on her.
I need a napkin to know nothing.
The Minneapolis Police Department said that the man has been identified as 55-year-old Anthony Kazimirzak. He was arrested and booked into Hennepin County Jail for third-degree assault.
Now, in an X post regarding the incident, Omar said, "I'm okay. I'm a survivor, so this small agitator isn't going to intimidate me from doing my work. I don't let bullies win. Grateful to my incredible constituents who rallied behind me. Minnesota strong."
Meanwhile, President Trump told ABC News, quote, "I don't think about her. I think she's a fraud. She probably had herself sprayed, knowing her."
Not a good response from the president, right? We don't want to see political violence or attacks in any way. And this is one of those times where Trump can have a good policy, like trying to get businesses from stop buying houses, and I could say that's good. But I also think the pettiness is something that should be dismissed every time that he does it. I think when you look at just the last year alone, or last year and a half, and you look at the fact that Melissa Hortman was killed and her husband. When you look at Charlie Kirk, the biggest incidents of political violence. When you look at last week at Sundance Festival, the fact that what was his name? Maxwell Frost, the representative, was punched in the face. There's too much happening right now that you would even respond in that way.
Well, I think Trump, and I saw some other people, including Matt Walsh from the right, signal that. I think they were expressing concern about it being a sort of one of those hoax, hate crime incidents. My response to that is, and while there are hoaxes all the time, they usually don't have a suspect taken into custody. You know, when somebody spray paints an anti-Semitic slur or anti-gay or anti-whatever on your doorway, and it's always you who did it. Like,
are you trying to call Ilhan Omar Jussie Smollett?
Well, that's a famous example. Well, no. Let me finish. The reason I don't think that is the case here is because the guy, like, you don't have the guy do it because he gets arrested. He's going to be interrogated. His social media search history, his motivations will be found out immediately. So if it were a hoax, you're going to get caught immediately. So I don't think there's much likelihood at all that it was staged. I think it's probably some crazy person. Yeah, and that's very bad.
And the tensions are high. The topics that we're talking about, from Maxwell Frost, somebody yelling at him that they were going to deport him, to her specifically talking about immigration policy and the language that's been used around Somali Americans and including herself. I think that at the minimum, you could say that we condemn any type of touching, hitting, spraying objects, throwing shoes at George W. Bush back in the day. Like, all this should be condemned by everybody on every side of the aisle. And unless you have proof that it's staged, that shouldn't even be suggested.
Yeah, it didn't, liberals think it was really funny, though, when George Bush got a shoe thrown at him. Wasn't that, widely made fun of? I mean, I agree with you. I think political violence is bad, and we should condemn it universally, and I certainly condemn what was done to Ilhan Omar here.
I don't think that people should be hitting people or punching in the face or throwing a shoe. Not. I think that's an easy thing to say as a leader. Mm-hmm. I can't go back to tweets. I don't think we had Twitter back then to say how people felt about the shoe throwing, but I would think that most leadership would have been like, ha, 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 on Twitter if they had the opportunity.
A lot of people would have been really awful.
Up next, Bari Weiss held a town hall with CBS staffers and urged them to change course. Stick around for my lens.
Welcome back to Rising. Lindsey, what is in your lens today?
Lots to discuss. So Bari Weiss is walking into CBS News. I mean, we knew it was never going to be a quiet walk-in, and frankly, that's not a bad thing. She's built something real on her own. The free press didn't come from a legacy institution or a corporate safety net. It came from audience trust, curiosity, and a willingness to challenge orthodoxies. As a woman who's done that independently, that part of her resume is genuinely impressive to me. And CBS News, like every legacy newsroom, does need to evolve. Weiss acknowledged that head on at her first all-staff meeting, according to the New York Times. She told employees this week, quote, "We are not producing a product enough people want." That's blunt, but it's not wrong. Broadcast news is losing relevance a bit, reach, and trust. Ignoring that reality would be malpractice. Where the tension comes in is the execution. Because rethinking distribution, expanding voices, and meeting audiences where they are at should never come at the expense of a journalistic spine. And that's the burden Weiss now carries. Not because of who she is, but because of the moment that CBS is in. She promised to, quote, "marry the journalistic principles that will never change, seeking the truth, serving the public, and ferociously guarding our independence with the tools that are constantly are." Independence is the whole ball game, especially when CBS's new ownership settled a $16 million defamation case with President Trump shortly before federal approval of the sale. Especially when critics are watching for signs of softness, deference or access-driven coverage. That's why early stumbles have landed so hard for Bari, pulling a 60-minute segment on migrant detention abuses after it had only been promoted everywhere, only for it to largely air unchanged, raised legitimate questions. Weiss admitted she mishandled the logistics, saying she was new to TV and, quote, nothing of that kind is ever going to happen again. Fair, rookie mistake. But it can't become a pattern. Because optics matter. When a January 6th anniversary gets a 15-second he said, she said mention, while CBS's own justice correspondent does a deep dive that day on the BBC instead, that's not innovation, that's avoidance. When an anchor closes a segment with this,
Marco Rubio, we salute you. You're the ultimate Florida man.
That's not exactly broadening appeal, that's blurring lines. None of this means Bari Weiss has to become what her critics fear or abandon the disruption she was hired to bring, but it does mean proving consistently that she isn't a proxy for ownership interests, political pressure, or access journalism. That stories critical of power won't be slowed, softened, or sidelined. CBS News became CBS News by earning trust over time, not chasing relevance overnight. Now, reinvention is necessary. Compromise on core principles is not. If Weiss gets this right, she can help build a newsroom that's both modern and formidable. If she doesn't, no amount of startup language will save the credibility that made CBS even matter in the first place.
You are really upset still about that Marco Rubio line.
I am. We salute
Not
you.
let
Oh my
that
God.
go.
We salute you.
But I've said it.
It was a salute. I named the other things.
cut
That was
that.
the icing on the cake. I named the coverage, he said, she said, of January 6th, the cutting of the story that aired largely unchanged, even though she was accusing these tenured producers of not having reached out to the White House and federal administration officials, and they did.
I've written for Bari Weiss before. She is an intense editor. You have no idea how intense. There's a lot of people who don't want to write for her because she is so meticulous at what she does. She demands rewrites, even when you think you've given her exactly what she wants. She wants it done over again and again and again. People quit in frustration because she's that thorough. So I was not surprised in the least bit that she ordered some, even at the last minute's never good, but that she ordered another look at that segment, which aired and was fine.
And nothing really changed. So why did she do that? That's what I mean.
Because she's an editor.
Flexing a muscle because...
No, because she's a detail-oriented, intense editor. She's good at that. So I don't have any problems with how that went down. I don't have any problems with they just announced a slew of like 20 new contributors to CBS.
A lot of them came from her site, The Free Press.
A lot of them did. They're all people who are great. I don't agree with all of them on everything, obviously, but they're all interesting thinkers. They're people of the center left, the center right. Really, her orientation is kind of very centrist, which is going to be interesting to see if that can thrive in a media ecosystem where I think strongly held opinions can prevail. Can she, make a business model out of smart centrism? But the Free Press proved that there is a model for that, and I think CBS used to position itself that way, but has recently fallen. You talked about a brand having trust. They have squandered trust. They
They cut out a pause in Kamala's interview?
Yes.
Like, that's why for you, for real? That's what
60
you're going with?
minutes,
I mean,
all
you're talking
sorts of
about
crazy
me and
stuff.
this, we salute you, Marco Rubio, but this pause in Kamala's interview really changed the game for you. I mean, the fact that she took a breath while she thought about what she wanted to say.
Okay, the thing that 60 Minutes has done in the last several years that was most offensive to me was their segment on German speech police, where the reporter is just sitting there like, oh my God, you can take people's laptops? You can shut them off their social media accounts? Like lusting after the censorship power that the German authorities employ without any consideration of how, one, evil that is, how that would conflict with our cherished First Amendment rights. That was revealing in an ideological way. And there's been a lot of that. The tech coverage is horrific, prone to moral panic. So I'm excited to see, and the people brought in this new roster. These are people who I think through tech issues in a more, and speech-related issues and social media issues in a more holistic way, a way more in keeping with our American traditions, not some European bureaucrats.
And she also told folks that if it's not the place for you, that they can leave. She did say that during the meeting, and I think that there has to be like a level of respect for the people that have been doing this, that are there even before she was born. And that doesn't mean that the grandparents need to run the newsroom. It means like you got to respect people's experience sometimes, and that they can bring they can bring information to you. Like so I lead a production company. I'm not the best editor in the world. I'm going to respect the editor's suggestions. I make the call, but I'm not just going to tell him what to do when he's been doing this for 20 years.
Of course.
So that's what I'm saying. There are people there that feel like condescended by her presence. And so I think this meeting might have been and this has come from reports that have come out. I think a meeting is a first step to actually acknowledge that you see and hear the people that have been working so hard.
This isn't about the production. Yes, of course, the production team knows more about
the news team, the researchers,
the reporters. This is about
the
the ideological content, the perspective. And there, she should just basically wholesale disregard the people who represent the old guard and the perspective. She's changing the perspective. The perspective doesn't work for the business model. The perspective doesn't work for the new owners. So it's going to be different.
Well, this is a really expensive bet. Like I said, I'm happy for Bari Weiss. I'm not one of those people that has an intense, extreme feeling one way or the other. I'm happy for her as a businesswoman, but also think that she could really drop the ball here if she doesn't handle this right. And I think that it's a fine line to walk because she's a test case on a high, expensive level to see as they start to open the doors for more people that understand innovation and young audiences in these companies that need to open the doors, but not if it becomes a disaster over there. They're going to look and say, oh no, we're still going to cater to like 70 plus on TV and not make any adjustments.
Yeah, well, that speaks to the television model in decline anyway. I mean, you got to pivot to, right, will people just turn on their TV? They have it on. They leave it on all night. That was a business model that you sell ads. Now people watch online and on. I say this all the time. You have to consciously choose the next video. You have to have all individual pieces of content be compelling in their own right. It's more perspective driven. It's more personality driven. It's driven by individuals rather than brands. I think that's the biggest challenge she faces, is that just reviving a brand is a tough thing to do. Why even bother? She started something new, the Free Press. You start something new. You don't try to fix something because the brand itself doesn't have the value it used to have. Why try to save it instead of just creating something new? I know she's been tasked with saving it, so she'll give it her best effort, but I think it's a very fraught proposition to revive a brand in the internet age, because people can just choose a new thing.
Because TV came, radio didn't go away, so I disagree, but we'll see what happens.
Well, it's going away now.
Up next, TikTok settles a social media addiction lawsuit ahead of trial, while Meta and YouTube still remain as defendants. Stay with us.
On Tuesday, TikTok agreed to settle a lawsuit that claims social media companies have manipulated their products to hook young users.
The social video platform was one of multiple companies, including Meta and YouTube, facing deliberate addiction claims. TikTok settled before jury selection began in the California Superior Court of Los Angeles County on Tuesday.
According to court filings, the case involved a 19-year-old from California, identified as KGM, said she became addicted to social media platforms at a young age because of their attention-grabbing design, and she blames her depression and suicidal thoughts on the apps.
The lawsuit added, quote, borrowing heavily from the behavioral and neurobiological techniques used by slot machines and exploited by the cigarette industry. Defendants deliberately embedded in their products an array of design features aimed at maximizing youth engagement to drive advertising revenue.
These claims, if proven, would sidestep the company's First Amendment shield and also Section 230, the lawyers argue.
KGM's lawyer said in a statement, quote, KGM reached an agreement in principle to settle her case.
Snap settled with KGM on January 20th, leaving Meta and YouTube as the remaining defendants. TikTok and Snap are still defendants in a dozen other trials expected to start in state and federal courts, in 2026. And a spokesperson for Meta said in a statement on Monday that the company strongly disagrees with the allegations outlined in the lawsuit, and it's confident the evidence will show our longstanding commitment to supporting young people.
Now, a spokesperson for Google said Monday that the allegations against YouTube are, quote, simply not true. Providing young people with a safer, healthier experience has always been core to our work, they say. Meanwhile, in a separate lawsuit, Google agreed to pay $68 million to settle a case that alleges the tech giant's voice assistant of illegally recording users and then sharing their private conversations with advertisers.
Okay, so that case is a completely different one.
It's a lot of, but it's a lot of unsavory behavior going on.
Well, no,
tied together.
No, I dispute that utterly. That one, that is fraud. Yeah, they can't. If they're using your data in a way that violates the terms of agreement, if they're sharing it with that, that's all. That's a fraud issue. That's a data privacy issue. That's real. That's fine. The first thing.
It's real.
Oh my God!
It's very real.
These are ambulance chasers. The companies should not have to pay a cent because people like Instagram and Snapchat.
Say young people and kids. Let's talk about the matter at hand, what they're addressing. I think these platforms are designed to be addictive. Some adults are addicted to them.
What does that say?
Because
our show is designed to be addictive. I want people to watch it.
Okay, but like they're saying with
the
slot machines.
The Hill because they watch too much Rising?
No, because
this is insane.
The slot machine, that's why they have YouTube Kids, right? The slot machines are not supposed to be for kids. And when they implement addictive design right into the app, like endless scrolling or automatic push notifications or streaks and badges and likes so you feel endorphins when somebody celebrates your content. These are all addictive features for young kids that makes them go into adulthood seeking that validation, causing some psychological damage.
Validation? We all seek validation.
No, it's
illegal.
causing even more problems. I think they should be monitored. They shouldn't just be running amok. I think it causes insecurity.
Take some responsibility for your kids' decisions. Stop. These are ambulance chasers making absurd lawsuits, seeking payouts. The companies have to pay them because they don't want to waste their time fighting it out in court. It is all protected by Section 230. And
through the evidence that they showed during this trial, they're saying that many young people, including KGW, has experienced depression, anxiety, body dysphoria. What do you mean? These are real issues. These suicidal thoughts, these are not concerning to you of a young person that is suing at 19?
Find me a teenager that doesn't
not everyone's
have any sad
contemplating
thoughts
suicide.
about their lives.
No, every teenager is not contemplating suicide. I'm not going to let you just say that so casually, right? I understand that you don't want any monitoring of social media.
There's not a teen girl on
I
this
said not
country
everybody.
that does not have body image problems or depression issues.
I know you know because you've been a teen girl before, right? So tell me all about it, please.
No, I'm saying.
Tell me all about it.
I'm saying it's a difficult. Young people, adolescence can be a difficult time. School makes them feel this way. Would you say should they sue the American school system for making them feel depressed?
Look, social media companies have a responsibility with that much access to people, and you can't put money over people. They're asking for some accountability within these companies, which is why Snapchat and TikTok settle. No, they are asking. So why did they settle then? Why did they settle? Because they know that they don't want all this information coming out to parents about how addictive it is.
And they have a lot of money, and they don't want to waste their time, and they don't want to accidentally get an adverse decision that sets a bad precedent. So it's easier to just settle. That all big companies have to just pay out frivolous and ridiculous lawsuits because it's less painful than going to court. So that's what they're doing. But the goals of these parents, I find these people evil, actually evil, because what they are trying to do is get court decisions on the book that limit your access, adults too, our access to information. They are trying to accomplish through civil litigation something they can't accomplish legislatively because the First Amendment conflicts. Their goal is censorship. It's one of the most pernicious things underway in our society. And because you can't parent your kid more effectively, we should all lose access to social media.
I think particularly new laws and restrictions can be created around children. And I think that's really important to not conflate the two issues with adults. They're talking about young. Yes,
it's
Robby.
simpleton thinking.
No, it's not simpleton thinking. I think when you have a kid, which I know that you would like down the line, then you will understand all the stuff that we're talking about. When you see kids get depressed and anxiety over these apps that are intentionally programmed to create these feelings because they want you to stay on longer because they sell your information to advertisers.
Don't give
that's
your kid
concerning.
A phone. Don't give
okay,
your
but
kid
you
a
can't
social
block
media
your kid
account.
you can block your kid from having a phone, but they can go to school with 1,000 kids with phones. So then what? And they can still see what's going on. I mean, this is nothing you can do. So you can tell apps to have more responsibility when it comes to young people. And that's just something that
you can't because of a little thing called the First Amendment. You can't limit young people's access to information by the government. Just in the same way you can't. We already had this. We tried this. The state of California tried to prohibit kids underage from having access to violent video games. And the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that because video games are speech. And speech is protected by the First Amendment, even for kids. You can limit their access to pornography and certain categories of speech. Supreme Court would have to do a new category for social media. There's no way, it's too broad. It's where they get news and information. How can you say at 15 we can't let you see the internet, But at 18, we expect you to be a fully formed adult who gets to vote for who the president's going to be? It doesn't make any sense to me. People are making emotional, people are sad, they're too addicted. They are not, also, by the way, not demonstrating concrete harms from these things. The comparison to cigarettes, millions of people die from lung cancer as a result of cigarettes. You can't credibly point to more than a handful of possible actual harm being visited on people because of
I believe one of the top killers in the United States would be stress, and I think anxiety, depression, all that stuff is connected to stress very closely.
Okay, I'm going to
so
sue
when you're
you then because of the
I'm
stress
stressing
that
you?
rising involves on my life. Where's
You're
my
an adult.
handout? Where's my handout?
It's so insane that you don't want to protect young people from getting this addiction to the social media. It's not that they can't have access to the information at all. It's that you shouldn't be programming in a way that feels like a slot machine for young people. The same way why we monitor gambling for adults. We say that you can have it at a certain age or you can gamble at a certain age. That's all we're saying.
I think
the information is there for
fully legal.
gambling. For 12-year-olds, you think they should spend all their allowance on gambling and their parents' money if they find their credit card?
I don't think they should
appropriate
spend
to you?
their parents' money. It's not their money.
Okay, so you think they should spend whatever money they have on gambling and go?
I think that's a parent's job.
Okay, no, I think that we have restrictions in place on purpose, and I think we should continue to look at social media as a new thing that still needs to have restrictions around it. You like to just live in this fake fallacy that we should have no restrictions on AI, the digital space in any way, and no, it's just going to run amok, especially when children are involved. You have to have some kind of organization and oversight over this to make sure that people aren't taken advantage of.
People go, oh no, there's one cat got hit by a driverless car, so we can't have driverless cars, even though they are 1,000 times safer than cars driven by human beings and will save thousands of deaths every year, but one hit a cat, so we can't have them. This is a silly way to do policy making that emphasizes small harms and misses major benefits that vastly outweigh the harm.
Well, this is not the only case that's ever come up. This is not the only instance where
there are a lot of other families seeking payouts from tech companies.
And everybody's just greedy in your mind. And I think it's just
no. They're responding to financial incentives. Oops, I slipped. I broke my ankle. Where's my? I'm going to sue the.
So no one gets hurt on the job
company.
in real life, is what you're trying to say?
No, we know these are frivolous lawsuits.
I don't agree.
All right, speaking of TikTok, they may not be censoring you after all. Their reasons for unusual activity on the app are explained after this. May not be a conspiracy after all, after users complained that TikTok was suppressing views on ICE and Alex Pretti related content. The social media app actually said Tuesday it was facing technical issues. According to TikTok, a power outage at an American data center stopped users from uploading new videos, and said that some videos inaccurately showed they had 0 likes or views. That was apparently corroborated when Barstool Sports' Jack Mack posted a screenshot of the NFL's TikTok page and wrote that your TikTok's not being censored. The app is clearly down. The NFL has posts from yesterday that also have 0 views. It's not just political content.
The reported outage comes just last week after parent company ByteDance officially spun off its U.S. operations. The new joint venture is now controlled by non-Chinese investors, many of which hold close ties to President Trump. Some users have indicated their concern those close ties to the president may end up having an effect on the platform's content. Despite those concerns, the New York Times reports, quote, a spokeswoman for TikTok said on Tuesday that the new U.S. entity had not updated its algorithm since the joint venture was announced, but as part of the agreement to spin out to the new venture, TikTok's U.S. operation is planning to retrain the content recommendation algorithm that it will be licensing from ByteDance.
So this was something we talked about yesterday, and there has been government pressure on social media companies to censor content. So I was not at all inclined to just dismiss the concerns that political people, mostly on the left, were raising about those kinds of content being censored. It's happened before. It happened when China controlled it. Or content about the pandemic was suppressed on TikTok at the behest of the Chinese government. So that was all plausible, but what we've learned in the last 24 hours is that just content of all kinds was being suppressed inadvertently due to technological issues, including just posts by the NFL and other things. So people might be saying like, oh yeah, well that's a convenient excuse, and maybe time will tell.
Right, you like to lean into conspiracy theories sometimes. As I said yesterday in my lens when I talked about this story, I said that their statement from Oracle was that the the data center was down. I also would like to read, because I got an email from the vice president of communications at Oracle. So I'm going to read your statement.
At
He
Oracle?
said, yes, his name is Michael Egbert. He said, over the weekend, an Oracle data center experienced a temporary weather-related power outage, which impacted TikTok. The challenges U.S. TikTok users may be experiencing are the result of technical issues that followed the power outage, which Oracle and TikTok are working quickly to resolve. And he wants to appreciate if I can update my story. I mentioned that in my lens, but I also don't think that we just take the word of companies that have owners that are friends with President Trump about which content's being suppressed. Like, we naturally are people that ask questions, analysts, journalists, we ask these questions. And so no one said that you definitely were doing it. We pointed to examples of Billie Eilish's brother, who usually gets the hundreds of thousands of views, got 42,000. So it wasn't zero for his, it just was the ICE content. We know specific words can be suppressed. We've seen that happen on Instagram already. We've seen that happen. You've complained about it for Biden during the pandemic, intentionally telling these social media companies what to suppress. So to just believe that they're not doing it, especially on the heels of the story about the intentional way that the algorithm's programmed or being sued because it's programmed, and TikTok just settling that case, knows that there's a little bit more than is let on about what companies can do behind the scenes to control algorithms and coerce people to get certain content. And so I just think that that's worth calling out and saying, oh, well, convenient timing. The leadership just changed, but also people who are posting about this major incident that really makes the administration look bad are being silenced. And that's what happened. So if it was a power outage, interesting. If it wasn't, it wasn't.
Yeah, I agree. And we should be paying close attention as this moves forward. We don't want to see censorship. I don't want to see any censorship on social media content on platforms. We want robust debate over different perspectives, and I hope that continues under the new owners. I hope that's even stronger under the new owners, because, again, under the previous owners, they could face pressure from the Chinese government. The Chinese government is not a friend of free speech, and particularly not a friend of content that is critical of the Chinese government. They might be pushing anti-American narratives. I wouldn't put that past them, but we should not respond by now owning this company and now, promoting propaganda or squelching dissent or anything of that nature. That would not be good. But
And as I pointed out yesterday, one of the owners of this new TikTok venture is the same owner of Paramount now, which owns all the news channels that we keep talking about, and how they kind of paid President Trump out for that lawsuit and agreed to all these things. So people naturally, just like I brought up with Bari Weiss in my lens today, are critical about what it looks like moving forward and what real information looks like. So the same owners, we'd ask the same questions on a different app.
Of course. And we will continue to ask those questions. That does it for us on Rising Live. Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way later today. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel so that you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. And we will see you back here tomorrow.
See ya. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz had harsh criticisms for Vice President JD Vance and claimed he would beat Vance in a rematch if they could debate each other again.
The two squared off in October of 2024 for the vice presidential debate. But Walz says if he could do it over again, his strategy would be different, especially when it came to Vance's immigration and housing arguments.
I would beat the out of him now if I could, and I would call that out. I mean, that's just different. In verbally going at it, my argument is much better. In making the case that housing prices are up because of immigration and that we should build on federal lands, it was such a crazy thing. But then when I watched him, I got sucked into that. And if you remember, this was right in that moment of eating dogs and cats. I took that bait and thought that that was the argument of how outrageous it was. That was not the argument.
Walz also accused Vance of lying throughout their debate. Take a look.
I think he was well prepped. It was strange to me to be in the presence of someone who I couldn't see a tell on him when he lied. It was so, usually you can see it, like with me, I'm like, oh, I'm a terrible liar. I'm a terrible poker player. And so I think the whole idea was there is that, look, again, when they fact checked it, I think he had 38 misstatements. They said I had 2. One of them was that Trump doesn't pay taxes. I'll stand by that.
Following their debate, most pundits felt that Vance had given a stronger performance, and results from public polling gave him a slight victory over Walz. Many viewers also complimented the two for focusing on policy and keeping a civil tone. Walz and Vance often found common ground in their arguments, as opposed to the presidential candidates Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, who argued a lot.
But since Trump and Vance took the White House, Walz has been more critical of them, especially in recent weeks as turmoil continues throughout Walz's state of Minnesota. He's repeatedly referred to ICE as, quote, dangerous force, and demanded that Trump remove the immigration agents from the state.
What he wants to relitigate the debate he did a good job at. Like, this is actually kind of pathetic. And then he's going to the most friendly audience imaginable on earth, Tim Miller of The Bulwark, to say that, well, here's how I would have done it differently.
Why are you making that voice for that man?
I was trying to do a kind of Minnesota. It's not my best. I need to work on that.
I'm not gonna lie. After watching,
cares?
I think that Kamala whooped Trump in that debate that they had against each other. I think that JD Vance whooped Walz in that debate. And so it was like not a question to me. I mean, that was not a good debate from Walz. It was they stayed on topic. They talked about a lot of topics, but like he said, he got wrapped up in certain things that weren't necessary to get wrapped up in when there were really policy issues that people wanted to hear, outside of the fact that you're not Trump and you're not, because Vance wasn't Trump. Vance is his own person and seemed very presidential during the debate. It was one of those times that people that weren't extremely familiar with him felt like, wow, I could see him being president in the future for the first time. And so I think Walz should just let that go, especially given all that's happening in his state right now. He's better off going on these podcasts and just only talking about what's happening with ICE, since most of the country agrees that the president has gone too far.
Use of his time, he has to run the state. The state is
and they have a lot going on. Problems. Right, they have a lot going on.
He wants to prove he's a good debater. I'm sure. I think Vice President Vance is probably too busy, but there's probably some conservative politician who would do a debate with him, and then we could see, I guess. But also, Tim Walz is about to slide into irrelevancy. He's not running for re-election.
I don't think so, with all that's going on in his state.
No one wants to debate him anymore. He's a complete and total and utter failure and a joke, and we don't need to hear from him anymore.
You have all these strong words for certain people. I find that so interesting.
For people I don't like.
I don't think that he's completely failed at his
really
job.
Don't like
I think that he, is somebody who is well liked throughout Minnesota prior to all the incidents that are happening right now. And I'm not sure how they
found out about
feel
the
about
massive
him right
fraud.
Now. There's a lot going on with the fraud.
He was afraid to do anything about because he didn't want to.
Fine, but there were many states across the country, like you and I have discussed, that were experiencing extreme amounts of fraud during the pandemic and right after, when federal authorities opened up access to capital because we were in dire circumstances, and a lot of people took advantage of that.
I hope we learned our lesson.
And it wasn't
there.
Only just Minnesota, and there were several Republican states, I believe, like Ohio, that had a lot of Minnesota. There were a lot of other places, and I think that we need to be cognizant that we're only focusing on one state. If you really want to get rid of fraud from the pandemic on, then we should look at every single state, not just the ones that President Trump wants to pick on. So, like I said, Walz did respond in that situation too little, too late. He had several years where the pandemic has the temperature turned down on what's going on. We were able to get a grasp on it. He could have responded. He chose to put some new statements forward in December of last year. That was really late. And so now he's dealing with the repercussions. But he also did step out of the race, which is a good thing for Minnesota. Now they can see what's going to be next for them and who the next governor will be.
She apparently was going to declare this week, but postponed that because of everything going on. And she is, I think, behind the scenes taking a lot of phone calls and figuring out what the move is. But I think she's going to go for it, is my understanding.
Timing is really important. Timing is really important here, especially when the whole world is looking at Minnesota for a lot of not great reasons right now. Particularly back to back.
The whole show on Minnesota today.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people
segment after segment
about what's happening there. So I don't know that now is a great time for her because she wants to really make sure that she has an easy path forward, which I think she will. But right now we have to just make sure on their end that they figure out what a workable solution is with the president before she starts announcing how she would handle leading the state, because a lot of people have a lot of questions about how it's being led right now, how ICE is there right now, and what the solution is. That's the main issue for them. Some on the left are calling for Americans to take drastic actions in order to stop ICE, including calling for a strike on the U.S. economy. We'll be right back.
Businessman and author Scott Galloway is proposing a nationwide strike on the U.S. economy as a means of stopping ICE.
Galloway put forth the idea on his podcast, which he hosts with journalist Kara Swisher. He said he believes this is the fastest way to get the Trump administration's attention and to get real changes into motion. Let's take a look.
Trump does not respond to outrage. He responds to markets. And that's not cynicism. It's mechanics. I'm not talking about a labor strike. This isn't unions, picket lines, or collective bargaining. I'm talking about something quieter, far more unsettling to the system, and that is an economic strike. A short-term coordinated withdrawal from spending and maybe work. No marching, no slogans, just less. And
well, they
something
did
we
that.
forget.
They did that in Minnesota. They had a day. The business is closed.
It can't be a day. A day is annoyance. It needs to be a week or a month, and it needs to be national.
These people. Galloway also says he's trying to get other public figures and even some politicians on board with the strike. His proposal was not received very well online. Political consultant Ryan Drudusky wrote, Scott Galloway should make his credit card receipts transparent, show us that he and none of his children are spending any money on anything, no more business transactions, no takeout orders, no flights. These sanctimonious liberals want you to do what they never will. And lawyer Adam Lowy says, so the wealthy academic thinks the best approach is to hammer small business with an economic strike over this.
But Galloway is not the only one thinking along these lines. Actor Edward Norton echoed his comments in an interview with the LA Times. Let's take a look.
We cannot act like this is not happening. And I think, you know, I think what they're doing in Minnesota with the strike needs to expand. I think we should be talking about a national general economic strike until this is over and stopped.
Last Friday, hundreds of businesses shut down for the day in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and thousands of people gathered in the streets to protest ICE. But as you heard both of them say, both Galloway and Norton feel that the economic strike needs to go on for longer. It needs to be nationwide to have the biggest impact possible.
You know,
you love this.
I agree, Lindsey. It's time for a strike, and I think Scott Galloway should lead the pack. I think he should refrain from economic activity so he could stop talking on the 18 podcasts he does. I know I'm throwing stones at glass houses here, but I hope I'm not as annoying as Scott Galloway is. I don't see how anyone on earth could exceed that bar. And Kara Swisher, you know, I despise. This is like the one person I might dislike more than Kara Swisher is Scott Galloway. He should go on strike, and no more words out of his mouth stops moving until we have world peace. I agree.
Well, strikes are effective, Robby. I mean, recent history tells us the UAW strike, that was in 2023, the auto workers, that secured significant pay increase for those auto workers, so that worked. But that's one type of strike.
That's a little different.
I know, that's one example.
Labor strike against management for a specific demand.
It works. It worked with UPS.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
But I think
it's a thing.
They have a key point that the economy is supposed to be the businessman in chief's number one concern. And so political power is tied to economic performance. We know that after Target decided to cut DEI programs, a lot of people of color decided, I don't know if you've been aware of this, to stop shopping at Target altogether. And guess what? It's genuinely affected Target. Since 2021, their stock is down 51%. Their CEO that was there for, it is part of the reason. CEO who's been there for 11 years is stepping down next month in a couple of days in 2026 because of how bad the company's doing. So yes,
aren't shopping at Target anymore?
No, I don't think so. People were shopping at it just fine right after, around the pandemic. It's dropped dramatically, and there's been a widespread call to stop shopping at Target. I have people that are friends that are black that are like, where else can I get this?
Well, but if you go woke,
I'm just telling you, people
can go broke because then conservatives stop shopping there. The decision for non-political businesses to become political either way. I would argue
conservatives tried to shut down Budweiser, right? And that was a fail. I think Budweiser is doing just fine.
It tanked their sales for years.
For years, Budweiser's doing just fine. I like to see the numbers on that. I think Budweiser's not doing as bad as Target. Did their CEO step down? Did their stock drop 50%? This is what I want to know the numbers.
Dropped massively.
For the day? Consistently?
No, for months. I swear to God, I was at the airport maybe a year ago. Not airport in DC, flying back from visiting family, and I was sitting at the bar before my flight, and I'm not a beer drinker. I ordered a cocktail, but the bartender said he had a Bud Light was one of the beer choices. That no one will drink it because of that commercial. No one, not a single person. So it impacted.
Well, the case
sales.
study by one person, fine, we'll accept it. But I'm just saying.
I think generally boycotts don't work. Of these broad kind of customer-based boycotts, like the kind of things that Scott Galloway is calling for, are not generally successful tactics and don't motivate corporate behavior or especially are not going to motivate government behavior. The way to object to government behavior is to vote for the other guy. It's not a strike or a boycott. It's an election comes around and you vote for the other team. That is what motivates political behavior.
There are a lot of
general striking.
There's a lot of big national businesses that will give President Trump money because he has amenable policies that they would appreciate if he puts forth. And so it's kind of like this give and take. We know how politics works. But if you have a consumer base that actually uses the product or buys the product that's telling you, we don't like what you're doing, don't keep on cozying up to President Trump, we're pulling money away. Well, who speaks louder? Does the president's policy speak louder, or the people who stop buying your stuff speak louder?
But that doesn't work because half the country, they do want everyone to cozy up to Trump. We're a closely divided nation. He won the popular vote.
In regards
more
to
people
ICE,
voted for Trump than voted for Democrats.
In regards to the handling of ICE, we're seeing more people not appreciating what's going on over there.
That's
the
true,
Quinnipiac poll that I referenced. Well, that's what these people are on the podcast talking about, specifically in Minnesota. Companies that are based in Minnesota that support Trump's policies in any way. Let's look at those, boycott those. That's the nationwide boycott that I would recommend. These small local businesses, I think that they should not catch the brunt of any pressure that ICE has brought to the city. That's kind of silly. But national companies that have given tons of money to President Trump and push forth these endeavors and initiatives, you can look at those people.
Don't you think there's something a little hypocritical about wealthy people? And I'll put Edward Norton in this category too. By the way, again, separating art and artist, I think Edward Norton is a terrific actor. I love every movie he's ever been in. When I see he's in a movie, I automatically want to watch that movie. I think he's great. Totally disagree with him here. Is there not something hypocritical about wealthy celebrity type? Scott Galloway is very wealthy too. Does like TED Talk type guy and podcast and books and everything. These people saying you should refrain from economic activity, but they're first class in I don't know exactly what the situation is. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. If you're telling people,
I don't know specifically.
Don't shop here, I would assume that you're not shopping there, right? But it's also hard because when you look at all the organizations that you would need to boycott that have aligned themselves in some way with President Trump, well, the people, to my friends that have decided to boycott Target, I'm also like, well, you need to boycott Amazon. So don't order none of your stuff. Or you need to, and it's like we can go down the list. So why, it's almost like picking on Target, but that's the one they picked. And when you have an organized group that say we're going with this company, people just fall in line that want to be effective.
Silly. Let's say I stop at Panera for lunch, and then I go, okay, what are all the statements Panera's ever made? And what are all the political spendings of the CEO? And what is it? That's just so exhausting, and I don't know who wants to live like that.
I mean, people don't have a right to spend their money where they're
course.
Appreciated and celebrated, not tolerated.
If I was only associating myself the economy is so intertwined. Where does Panera get its bread from? Does the company that manufactures the bread have all? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At some point, we'll all have to be autarkists and just assemble everything ourselves, which we can't even do because the tools to assemble things is equipment that was built by someone who has political views. I think this ends up getting very silly very fast, in my view.
We'll see what happens.
People can do whatever they want. Feel good.
We'll be looking out for these strikes. I mean, who's going to call it and bring it all to culmination? We'd like to see who's going to spearhead this whole thing.
Yeah.
We have a lot more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.